Hey everyone, it's Jasio here, and today I'm going to talk about a really cool and relatively new field of research in material science. It's what a lot of my own research is based on, and I think it's so cool. So, what I like to study is transforming or shape-changing materials. So materials that have the ability to change some aspect, whether it's their size, their stiffness, the color, anything like that, or its thickness, based on some sort of reaction to its environment. So maybe a certain material changes color when you expose it to light, or maybe when you put it in a certain liquid, it changes shape or folds in some cool way. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you one of nature's most simple and common but coolest examples of a transforming material, and that is a pine cone. So I'm going to show you how a pine cone reacts in wet versus dry environments through a couple of time lapses, and then we'll talk about why that happened. Those time-lapse videos were pretty cool, huh? It may have seemed really quick, but actually it took a long time for this pine cone to dry and open up. That video took a little over 24 hours, whereas when it was wet, it closed up in about an hour. So the drying and dehydrating rates are very, very different for a pine cone. So what's happening here is this is the pine cone's natural way of attaining more water in dry environments. When it's dry and there's no moisture in the air, the pine cone will open up its petals so there's greater surface area. You can see this pine cone's got some petals open still. That way it's easier to capture rainwater and just moisture from the environment. And once it's got its water and doesn't need any more, it's able to close back up and it's just chilling there. So the reason this pine cone's able to move on its own is because in these little petals that are sticking out, there's a bilayer, there's two layers of each petal. And in these petals, there are tiny fibers aligned in certain directions. So one layer is aligned this way and the other layer is aligned this way. So when water is being soaked up into it, those fibers constrain and only allow movement in certain directions. So while one layer is pulling one way and the other layer is pulling the other way, it causes it to curl. So bilayer is a pretty simple way of obtaining a simple motion, so any kind of bending or any kind of this shape change. So I've done work with hydrogels and types of silicones and things that if you layer them a certain way, you can get them to move in really cool directions. I did work with other projects where you would print or create some sort of material with weird patterns or ridges so that when you put it in hot water or hot air, then it would curl and it would fold along those edges and sort of do some origami kind of twisting, which is really cool. So there's a lot of different ways you can obtain motion and shape change with materials. And I hope you are inspired by this little pine cone to find some more examples. Another cool thing, for example, is silly putty. Silly putty reacts to its environment not in terms of moisture but in terms of stress. So silly putty under low stress flows like a liquid, and silly putty under high stress hardens like a solid. So that's just another example. And then there's also ketchup, which is kind of globby when undisturbed, and then once you start shaking the bottle, it starts to thin out, so it's able to flow out easier. Same with like peanut butter, honey, yogurt, creams that thicken, all sorts of stuff.